Okay, hi. My name is Nivedita, but you can call me Nivi. I hope everybody can hear me properly. So, this space is about combining two forms of connecting with the universe, that is tarot and astrology. I hope you guys can see the graphics I've shared in this space. So, one is this wheel thing that I've made, and the other is a graphic which shows the tarot cards and their corresponding signs and planets. Uh, can you guys react something if you can hear me properly? I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. So, let me just begin with some background. What is tarot? Tarot is a method of divination where you connect with any form of divine through the tools that are the cards, and you use your intuition to translate the message that the divine has given you. And the divine can be anything, it can be the universe, it can be God, it can be your ancestors, it can be spirits, source, and even your higher self. So tarot is essentially a tool to connect with the divine, and the main thing that is coming to focus in tarot is your intuition. That is how you interpret the given combination of cards. So in a traditional tarot deck, there are 78 cards which are divided into two sections, the major and the minor arcana. So the word arcana means profound secret. So major secrets and minor secrets. So the major arcana cards, they tell us about the soul's journey, the major themes in our life, and the minor arcana tell us about the daily activities and the daily themes in our life. So there are 22 major arcana cards and 56 minor arcana. And this space is about connecting these cards to astrology and how that can help us deepen our understanding of the cards and astrology, and how we can use a few techniques that combine tarot and astrology to answer timing related questions. And these are all techniques that I've kind of used myself. So I have a lot of examples to give, and then we can proceed with any questions that you guys may have. So let's start with the major arcana. Let's look at the graphic I made. So there are 22 major arcana cards, and 19 of them correspond to signs or planets, at least the traditional planets. We don't consider Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, but you can if you want to. But in this space, we'll stick to the traditional planets. So, first, I'm going to start off with the signs. I hope you guys can see the graphics. So, okay. So, first, I'm going to talk about each card and how it relates to an astrological sign. So the first card and the first sign, by the way, these are all in order. The cards correspond to that zodiac order. The first card is the Emperor, which corresponds to Aries. And as you can see in the Emperor, there's this red color combination, and this card also has the classic Aries ram symbolism on his throne. So this card, it's about having a strong foundation. His chair, it's made of wood. His shoes, they are made of steel. And it's that classic Aries cardinal energy where someone knows what they want, they are ready to go for it, they have the tools that they need, and they are not afraid to go for something that they want. They have all the resources, and that's what the Emperor is, someone who stands their ground and who is brave enough to go for what they want. I'm going to keep these ones short, by the way. Okay, the next one is the Hierophant. Uh, okay, right. So the next one is the Hierophant that corresponds to Taurus energy. Now, the Hierophant is also called the Keeper of the Keys, and we can see keys at the bottom of this card. Now, this card is more religious, and it's about the structures and the rules that are to be followed, and the Hierophant makes sure that people follow these rules. And this relates to that fixed Taurus energy. You can see the pillars, which are very simple. And like with any kind of religion or any kind of spiritual practice, there's an emphasis on connection with the divine. And if we relate this to Taurus, the emphasis on is on connecting with nature. So that's why his pillars are wooden, and he's just someone who makes sure that you follow his rules. The next card is the Lovers, which corresponds to Gemini energy. And again, there's this emphasis on connecting with other people. Now, this doesn't have to be romantic. You can connect with other people in any way, and that's that classic Mercurial Gemini energy. And again, Gemini is known for balance, and this card is about balance and duality, and just making sure that all our energy is going in the right place and there's no sense of disbalance. And like Gemini, this is the mutable energy where you can control where your energy goes and you can ensure a sense of balance. The next card is the Chariot, which corresponds to Cancer, and we can see his armor has crescent moons on it. Now, this card isn't your typical Cancerian energy that you would expect, but it is about that strong willed Cancerian energy, the person who knows what they want and they are willing to go for it. Again, Cancer is a cardinal sign, so there is this strong theme of going after what you want. So in this card, he's not holding any kinds of reins. He is simply directing his chariot using his mind, using his inner power. And I think that is the true essence of Cancerian energy, that is being able to mold and change and use your inner power. The next card is the Strength card, which corresponds to Leo energy. Obviously, there's a lion here. And this card is about taming our inner instincts, our inner impulses, that survival instinct that we have, what makes us human, taming that and using it for more productive purposes. And as we know, Leo, it's a fixed sign. So it has a certain way of doing things. So this card tells us to let go of that rigid attitude and try to focus our energy in different ways if that's what the situation calls for. And again, Leo is about that creative energy. So it's to this card tells us to take our emotions, our overwhelming emotions, whether that's anger or grief, and to mold them into something productive, something creative. And that's what Leo is about. The next card is the Hermit, which corresponds to Virgo. Now, again, this is not like the classic Virgo imagery, but this is exactly who you picture every Virgo in your life becoming. This hermit who lives at the top of a mountain, alone and away from everyone. Now, the hermit has a lot of knowledge to give, a lot of wisdom, and this card tells us how the hermit got here. The hermit picked up all this knowledge through isolation by spending time with your own self and not just learning about the world, but more importantly, learning about yourself and shedding light onto the things that need the light most, like what people call the shadow part of yourself. And you can only access that when you're alone. And this relates to Virgo in the sense that Virgos are, they're known to be perfectionists, they're known to be analytical people, but essentially that perfectionism is projected onto their own selves because they expect everybody else to be perfect, they expect themselves to be perfect. And when they're extremely analytical, they analyze other people and they analyze themselves and they critique themselves. So when they spend so much time with themselves, putting all this pressure on themselves, it can get very overwhelming. So this card tells you to relax, to calm down, and to show some compassion to yourself. The next card is Justice, which corresponds to Libra. And of course, this person's holding that balance, which is classic Libra energy. And I think one thing that is overlooked when it comes to Libra is their need for fairness. I think when people have transits, like Libra transits, like we're all having right now, so many planets are in Libra. There's this innate sense of justice and fairness. Like we want the person who is wrong to face the consequences. We want the person who is right to get their due, like get their like uh, to get their revenge or to get the happy ending. And we all have this innate sense of fairness. But something that is also common with Libras is being not so confrontational and being a bit passive aggressive. So that is something this card talks about. Like this lady here, she's holding a sword. So this card tells you that it's okay to fight for justice, but but you need to learn how to pick your battles. Like if you can see the sword, it's facing upwards. It's not facing forward. She's not ready to attack just yet. She can attack if it comes to it, but she will think it through. Libra is an air sign. It is a fixed sign. Sorry, it's a cardinal sign. And cardinal signs tend to, like I said, go for it. But when it comes to a battle, we need to pick our battles. So you are ready to fight, but you also know when not to fight. It's again, it's that balance of knowing when to fight and when not to fight. Now, the next card is the Death card, which is Scorpio energy. So, again, Scorpio relates a lot to topics of taboo and topics around death and transformation, and that is exactly what this is. Death card is about change and transformation and welcoming that change with open arms. Because at the back of this card, there is a sunrise, there is some death, there's some change, but there is also new life. And that's what Scorpio energy is about. It's about transformation and knowing when to let go. The next card is Temperance, which corresponds to Sagittarius energy. And this card, captures something about Sagittarius energy that isn't usually talked about, and that is this need to care for your own self along with other people. Like this card focuses on filling your own cup, and it also focuses on connecting with the divine because this person here, they have their wings, they have their halo, they have this third eye thing open. And not only are they connecting with the divine, they're also connecting with the land because they're standing on the ground, there's water on their feet. So it gives that imagery of as above so below, and pouring into your own cup along with others, which also reminds me of the mutable Sagittarius energy. So again, this card is not typically Sagittarius, but it gives that message of having one foot on the ground and your head up in the sky. It's that jovial energy, someone who doesn't pity themselves, who helps themselves and helps others. And now the next card, I think this is everybody's favorite, the Devil, which corresponds to Capricorn energy, which is pretty interesting because you would expect the Devil card to be something really scary, but Capricorn is all about rules and systems. So maybe this card tells us that some rules and some systems are the devil. Okay, so this card is about the limiting beliefs that hold us back, any kind of unhealthy so called addictions or obsessions that keep us from moving forward in life. And with this Capricorn energy, it asks us to not be so hard on ourselves. We all have limiting beliefs, we all have things that hold us back, but it's important to treat ourselves with compassion because if we take that traditional, stereotypical Capricorn path of being too hard on ourselves and pressurizing ourselves, we won't get anywhere. So even if we have the devil on our heads, it's important to show ourselves compassion. The next card is the star, which corresponds to Aquarius energy, which shows a classic Aquarius archetype that is the person with the water bearer. And this is a naked lady who lives according to her own rules, which is peak Aquarius. And this card essentially shows us that you can do whatever you want to do, you can follow your own rules, and you're always going to be supported. There are stars in the sky, you're doing your weird ass thing, and you're good, you're happy. And that is peak Aquarius energy, just following our own path, no matter what anyone says, because you're always divinely supported. The next card is the moon, which is about our subconscious mind and even intuition. And this card corresponds to Pisces energy, which is great because it shows the moon, it shows water, and Pisces energy is about breaking that barrier between the known and the unknown, the conscious and the unconscious, and just opening ourselves up to whatever messages we get from the divine. That's what this card is telling us, and it also tells us to remember some sort of boundaries, to open ourselves up, but keep one foot on the ground so that we don't drift too far away, and to embrace that intuition, to embrace the emotions, and to embrace ourselves. Okay, so that was the major arcana cards that corresponded to each sign. Before I move on to the major arcana cards that correspond to each planet, does anybody have any questions? You can write them in the thread that we have going on.
And if anybody would like a speaker mic, the icon is on the bottom left corner, and then we'll grant you a speaker mic.
Yes. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll move on, and there will be chance for asking questions later on as well. Now let's look at the cards and the planets that they correspond to. We'll start with the sun, which corresponds to the sun tarot card, which shows a child on a horse. And this card is about connecting with our inner child, with being hopeful, being optimistic, knowing that good times are coming, and healing our inner child in the meanwhile, and just connecting with nature, with the sunlight, with the flowers, with animals, and knowing that healing is possible. The next card is the High Priestess that corresponds to the moon, and obviously, there is a moon on this card. So, the High Priestess, she is she is the veil. She is the keeper between the unconscious and the conscious realms. She's a holder of secrets, and I think something that isn't quite talked about is the secrecy aspects of the moon, because the moon is our hidden, it is our inner emotions, and a lot of us hide them from most people. So this card just shows the sort of barrier and the veil that is between the outer and the inner realm, the hidden secrets, and the and the person who guards them. The next card is the Magician, which corresponds to Mercury. And the Magician is known for having all the resources, which is mercurial, being very resourceful, knowing that you have everything you need. And the Magician also is holding his hand up with a two faced candle that is facing the ground, the land, and also facing the sky. And I love how this relates to astrology itself, because astrology is mercurial. And through astrology, we aim to connect the stars and the land, which is what the magician does. The next card is the Empress, that corresponds to Venus. Obviously, we have the Venus symbol. This is pretty obvious. She has this gown made with pomegranates, which symbolize fertility. She's sitting on these pillows that symbolizes comfort, luxury. She has a crown. She's sitting in a farmland, which shows fertility again, and just even food. So, pretty typical, the Empress Venus. Now, the next one is very interesting, the Tower, that corresponds to Mars and Martian energy. So, the tower is struck by lightning and everything is falling down. It's very chaotic and there's fire. And at its core, that is what Mars is. It is movement, it's drive, and it is chaos as well. And Mars is the thing that gets everything into action, and that is what the Tower card does. It causes upheaval so that you're forced to act and you're forced to move and make change. The next one is the Wheel of Fortune, that corresponds to Jupiter. Now, this card is often seen as being the card symbolizing luck, and that makes sense. Jupiter is associated with luck, it's associated with abundance, and the Wheel of Fortune is exactly that. It shows the fixed signs, and the Wheel of Fortune is something that we all try to interpret, and we all have different interpretations. This shows a background of the sky having a head in the clouds, and it gives this imagery of learning because all the archetypes are holding books. So, and they're in the sky, so it's higher learning. Now, the next card is the World, which corresponds to Saturn, interestingly enough, which also shows the fixed signs. Now, this card often represents a cycle coming to an end. And with Saturn, we often talk about karmic cycles. Now, I'm not going to get into what karmic is, but essentially, it is some pattern or cycle that we are, in quotes, doomed to repeat unless we make a change. And that's what this card is about, that Saturnian pressure on us to make a change because we know we can't live like this, and ending that cycle. The whole wreath itself looks like husk, which again correlates to the Saturnian imagery of farming. So those were the major arcana cards and the planets they corresponded to. Now, before we move on, I just want to put more focus on the graphic that I shared that shows the wheel. I'm assuming you guys must have seen this wheel a lot, like a different variations of it, which basically shows the decans of each sign and the minor arcana card they correspond to. So before I get into that, I'm gonna give some background on decans. So basically, the sun stays in one sign for roughly 30 days, and 30 days and 30 degrees. So each sign has 30 degrees, and the sun stays in a sign for 30 days. So the sun stays in roughly 1 degree for 1 day. So each sign is divided into three parts, each consisting of 10 degrees or 10 days. And each subdivision is called a decan. And each subdivision corresponds to a planet. So, I think it would be really helpful to look at that chart that I made, the wheel. So, because it's very visual. Okay, so for example, Aries is divided into three decans, and it's the first decan is ruled by Mars, the second decan is ruled by the Sun, and the third decan is ruled by Venus. And similarly, each sign is divided into three decans that are ruled by a particular planet. And each decan corresponds to a minor arcana card. So each decan is a 10-day period of the year and it corresponds to a minor arcana card. So if we use this wheel and we ask tarot a question, we can use it to figure out a timing related question, and this wheel can tell us at what time some event will happen. So let's take a closer look at the wheel so I can explain how it works better. Okay. So at the very center, the first most innermost ring are the signs. The next ring shows us the particular decan and which planet it corresponds to. So I've used the symbol for the planet and I've also used like a picture of the planet depending on whatever works best for you. And the next ring symbolizes the 10-day period of the year that that decan corresponds to. And the outermost ring shows the minor arcana card that that decan corresponds to. This does not include the aces and the court cards. That's a whole other thing. So that was the wheel. Now this looking at this wheel is very insightful because it provides you more layers of meaning. If we look at a card, okay, so I'm gonna show a card as an example. Just one second. I'm gonna find that card and I'm gonna show it as an example. I'm gonna show the Six of Pentacles as an example. Okay, so I've added that card to the thread. It's the Six of Pentacles, and I'm going to tell you what the symbolism and the meaning of this card is on its own, and then I'm going to tell you the additional insight that the whole wheel thing gives. So, this card shows a person being charitable, giving some coins to people who appear to be poor, and this card essentially, whenever I get this card in a reading for someone, to me it symbolizes putting someone on a pedestal or someone giving you crumbs. You know, in relationships, we've seen it. People get the bare minimum, or they get crumbs from someone, and they are happy with that, even though they shouldn't be. So to me, this is what this card symbolizes whenever I get it, or it symbolizes somebody being charitable, or someone putting more focus on one thing compared to the other. Because if we look at this card, he is giving food or money to one person while the other person is getting nothing. And even the placement of the pentacles on this card is disbalanced. There are three on one side and two on the other. So to me, this card shows some sort of disbalance of energies, a disbalance in some power dynamic, etc. But if we look at this card through the context of this wheel, through the lens of astrology, we get even more messages. So if we find the Six of Pentacles is in the second decan of Taurus. So this card falls in the moon ruled decan of Taurus. Now, if we look at the two cards that correspond to Taurus and the moon, we get the Hierophant and the High Priestess, which are literally like two halves of a whole. I mean, if you can say that. So, this in this way, we kind of take the astrology, turn it back around, and use it to get more meaning through tarot. So, if we look at this card, using the Hierophant and the High Priestess, it gives us this message of mercy and grace, because the high priestess, the moon, the high it's about charity, the the benevolence and the mercy that comes out of charity. And the hierophant is about material things, or being a giving person, someone benevolent enough to give you the answers, to give you money, to give you food. And when you look at it, when you look at it through that lens, you get even more clarity about the card. Like, it's very obvious that this card is about charity, but you get more insight when you look at it using two other major arcana cards, because the major arcana is about the deep themes in life, the overall themes in life, the soul's journey. And the minor arcana is about our daily activities, our daily problems. So when you look at your daily issues through the lens of your soul's journey, when you zoom out and look at the larger picture, the larger theme, you get far more insight than you would have gotten otherwise. And this is why it's really helpful that when you get a minor arcana card, you look at the two major arcana cards that it corresponds to. You look at the sign in which that minor arcana falls, and you look at the corresponding decan and that planet which rules that decan in order to get two major arcana cards, which gives you further insight. I hope that made sense. Does anybody have any questions? You can request to speak, or you can type it. Okay. Now, this was just how a method to use this wheel to get more insight in general. Now, let's talk about a timing technique. So, there are three timing techniques that I have. The first one is, of course, this wheel. So, you ask Tarot a timing related question, and if you get a minor arcana card, you look at the wheel, you look at the sign it falls in, the corresponding decan, and the time period that corresponds to that decan, which gives you a roughly 10-day period for that event to occur. So if you ask tarot, and I did this, I've done this in a few readings, where this client asked me when they will get a promotion, and there was a minor arcana card that stood out to me. So I looked at the wheel and looked at the 10-day period, which was some, I think, mid December. And later on, they told me that that is when they got the promotion or something. So that is one very basic way of looking at this. And if you get a minor arcana card that is a court card, then again, you can look at that general period. Like if you get a pentacles court card, you can look at the earth signs. If you get the cups court card, you can look at the water signs. And if you get the ace cards, you can look at the beginning of a season, like the beginning of Taurus season can be Ace of Pentacles, etc. This is more intuitive rather than systematic, but if it is one of the numbered minor arcana, you can definitely look at the wheel. Now, the second method also involves the wheel, and that is when you get a combination of major and minor arcana cards when you ask a timing related question. So recently, I asked Tarot the timing of when a certain person will reach out to me, and I got the lovers and I got the seven of wands. Now, the lovers corresponds to Gemini. So I was thinking, okay, which planet is in Gemini right now? Mars is in Gemini right now. And coincidentally, Seven of Wands corresponds to the Mars decan of Leo. So the Lovers card gave me a sign, Gemini, and the Seven of Wands corresponded to the Mars ruled decan of Leo. So that gave me a planet, Mars in Gemini. So that was my answer. That particular transit, Mars in Gemini, is in some way important, and you can ask further questions and pull out further cards to narrow down the exact time. But this is another way where if you get a major arcana card and a minor arcana card, you can use it to get a specific astrological transit and use that as a timing technique. Now, the third method is a bit less straightforward. So, a few months ago, my I had to get this visa for travel, and that visa just wasn't coming. So I asked Tarot, when will that visa come? And I got the Page of Swords. Now, as you know, the Page of Swords shows a guy just swaying in the wind, and I was very confused. But for some reason, that card reminded me of Mercury retrograde, because the swords corresponds to air energy, and that particular retrograde was in an air sign. So for some reason, without many deliberations, just in an intuitive way, that card reminded me of Mercury retrograde. And my visa ended up coming the day Mercury retrograde started, which you wouldn't expect. You would think it would come later, it would be delayed because of the retrograde, but it came right as the retrograde started. So, this particular method is less systematic and more intuitive. But if you have a timing question and you ask tarot and you get a card, you can kind of ponder on which astrological transit that card corresponds to, just intuitively, and figure out a timing for your event. Like I did with the Page of Swords. There's no reason for the Page of Swords to correspond to Mercury retrograde. It just came to me intuitively. But I feel like when you incorporate astrology into tarot, it can really help you gain more insight and answer timing related questions, because at the end of the day, astrology is timing. So those were the three methods. I'm going to recap them. The first one is getting a minor arcana card and looking at the wheel and looking at the deacon. The second way is getting a minor and a major arcana card and using each of them to get a planet or a sign. So the major arcana can tell you a sign, and the minor arcana can tell you the planet, or vice versa, so that you get a particular transit to look out for. And the third is to simply get a card and intuitively think about which astrological transit you think it corresponds to and how that transit can be relevant. So these were the three methods that I had. Now I want to give you some examples. So this is where the readings part comes in. So if you have, I would like to focus on timing related questions, because that is the focus. But apart from that, if there is some minor arcana card that you have a difficulty in understanding and you want me to explain it using the wheel, using the decans and the planet and everything, then you can tell that as well. Or if you have some timing related tarot question that you want me to answer. So again, you can request to speak or reply in the chat.
Maybe before we do that, we got a question in the thread
Oh,
asking
okay.
if this would be able to apply.
Yes, there's a request. I'm gonna approve it. Hi. Okay, they're connecting. Hi, Mo. What's your question?
Hi, I was just gonna ask if this could be applicable to like somebody's birthday, like for my birthday. Um, I'm a Libra sun and I was born on October 6th, so it would be the Justice card, the Empress, and then the Three of Swords. Could it be used that way too?
Yes, you can. In fact, I think that can be of great insight, because people usually have a birth card that they get by adding up their birthday and then looking at the card it corresponds to. But that just gives you one major arcana card, but this gives you like three cards. So that's actually a really good observation. You're right, it can definitely be used for that. You can gain some insight from it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other question in the comments? Because I can't see it.
Let me check. Sophie asks, how would you determine years?
Okay, yes. So I think this particular one can be done by either you straight up a ask tarot, like, give me a number, and then you can look at the number of the card if it stands out to you. But I think this is the one where the astrological transits come in, because if you ask tarot a question and you get a specific transit as your answer, then that transit may not be one that is happening currently. You may get like Saturn and Pisces, and then you know that this event will happen in the next year or so. Or you get um, Jupiter in Gemini, and then you know that that event will happen a few years later. So I think if you want to know years and you want to apply this technique, the best way is to uh, ask for a transit and then look at the time that transit's happening, because it may not be a present transit. Sophie, if you have a specific question that you want to ask, I would love to answer it, and that can also be like an example for everyone. Or if anybody else has any question which they want to ask Tarot, a timing related question maybe. Yes, Bonnie.
Hi. First, thanks so much for this talk. This is very interesting. I love your timing techniques, because timing is always
Thank
something
you.
that's difficult or can be tricky. And if you want, like, if I can ask a timing related question, is that what you mean? You would like to answer that?
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay, so I've been waiting for my student loan money, and it's long overdue, and I was wondering, when is my student loan money coming?
Okay, so I'm gonna shuffle my cards and I'm gonna ask them. Oh, a card fell
Oh.
out. It's the Ace of Pentacles in upright position. So it's this is very funny. It's literally a hand reaching out with a coin. So yeah, so your money is coming. That's what this card is saying. Let me shuffle more. Oh, another fell out. Okay, I got the Hierophant in reverse. So that's Taurus energy. Okay, let's shuffle again. Okay, so I got the Hierophant in reverse and I got the Knight of Pentacles. They're all very earthy, and I'm getting some Taurus energy. Even the Knight of Pentacles reminds me of Taurus. So does the Ace of Pentacles. Maybe during Taurus season, I think, because the Ace of Pentacles, the pentacle in that looks a lot like the sun. So I feel like it could come in during Taurus season, which is next year in May. Do you think it could come then?
That would
Okay.
be horrifying, because it was supposed to be there 2 months ago.
Oh god.
And I now, in sidereal, I'm a Libra rising, so Taurus would be my 8th house. In
Oh, okay, makes
tropical,
sense.
I'm Scorpio rising, and currently Mars is going through my 8th with this Gemini, right? And it's really, I feel like it's really messing everything up.
Hmm.
But it's supposed to come relatively soon-ish. Like, I called them last week again, and they said, "Oh, it's gonna take another 5 working days, so maybe it comes
Oh.
next week or the week after. I
Oh,
hope."
okay. So I just got another card. It's the Eight of Wands in reverse, and that does symbolize, like, things taking their time. But in the wheel, that corresponds to November 23rd to December 2nd, which is way closer. So maybe
Okay.
that the last week of November,
Wow. Yeah, that would still be like
a bit
double.
late. Yeah.
Yeah, for 4 times as long as I was expecting it to be. That would be so bad.
Yeah, it's really slow, but Yeah, it will definitely come. You will get that for sure. Mhm.
Very interesting. I'll definitely let you know when it's there.
You know, funny you said that it was supposed to show up. Was it supposed to show up between the last week of August and the first week of September?
That's interesting because in the last week of August, I actually applied in April. And
Okay.
then they came to me, okay, I have to submit more evidence, and I did, and they received it like last week of August, and I haven't heard back from them since then. But they wrote me like that email said, okay, 20 working days, and it's been 40 working days now. So and
Oh.
so I called last week, and they said, yeah, blah blah, 5 working days. They're a horrible institution, and
Yeah. Yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense because I said that last week of August thing because I got the 9 and 10 of Pentacles, which is why I looked at the wheel for that, and they were both in reverse, which kind of corresponds to how you were supposed to get it then, but you didn't. But yeah, I do feel like hopefully last week of November, especially if there's a Taurus moon during that time.
Yeah, I'll be watching for a Taurus moon. I really
I
hope it
hope,
comes sooner.
yeah, it will surely come. It will come. It's coming for sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And thanks for
You're
this
welcome.
presentation again.
Oh, thank you for asking and thank you for listening. Sophie, you had a question.
I'm so sorry about that, Bunny. I really hope that it doesn't like it comes earlier than later. And just the phrase you said, "What a horrible institution," and I tend to associate the Hierophant with institutions. Wasn't the Hierophant in reverse?
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
how do you interpret
Yeah.
reverses? And that gives like a well, it becomes more like a reading than a timing reading thing, right? But now that you say that we can interpret things intuitively, I'm here with my book and taking notes. I'm so thankful for this
Oh,
panel. It's been wonderful. I truly appreciate it, and that particularly stood out to me. So yeah, just want to point that one out.
yeah. I'm so glad you asked because I feel like if in terms of timing, reversals, I kind of see them as they could be retrogrades or like like in Bonnie's case, the reversal of the Hierophant was probably showing a terrible institution, and it was just describing the situation itself. Because a lot of times this can happen in tarot, where someone asks a question and you pull a card for it, but you are thinking something else in your head. So the card you get corresponds to what you are thinking about rather than what the person asked.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, so this used to happen to me in the beginning. Like I used to get a card about my own situation, and I'm like, wait, that's me. But yeah, yeah. So once you like focus on the person's question, that's why then you get a card for that. And sometimes tarot um, kind of just tells you that okay, this is what I'm answering about. Like this is the question, and I'm just reinstating it that this is what it's about. And this happens in astrology as well, which is a whole other thing. But sometimes, if you look at a chart for some answer, that chart also describes the situation along with giving you the answer. So, yeah, I feel like the Hierophant in this case could be telling about that terrible institution, like you said. But I feel like, in terms of timing, it could talk about retrogrades, reversed cards. I mean, they could be about retrogrades. Sophie, did you have a timing related question you wanted to ask? Because a card came out. That's why.
Well, deep in my heart, yeah, but I was thinking like, nah, I'm not gonna ask that. It's like,
Okay. You don't have. Okay, you don't have to ask
but
it. I'll
maybe
tell
I
you the
can
timing.
if it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you don't have to ask it. Let me just. Do you want to ask it, or should I just? You can keep the question to yourself. I'll just tell you the card that came out.
I would very appreciate that. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So I got the Seven of Cups, which in some situations can be about like wishes coming true and stuff, but it has a lot of meanings. But in terms of timing, this is like the second week of November. So November 13th to 22nd. So it's the last decan of Scorpio, the Venus ruled decan. And that's the timing. So if you had a timing related question in your head, it is gonna happen in the second week of November. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So we have a few minutes left. Does anybody have any more questions? Also, if you have a minor arcana card that you have some confusion with understanding, then you can let me know. I can explain that in context of astrology or otherwise.
Yeah, I have a question about a card, actually.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry,
yes.
Bonnie raised the hand. Sorry. You go first,
You
Bonnie.
no, you go first. I raised it after you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I was looking at my notes, and the Nine of Cups, I kind of have like a struggle understanding that because I tend to think of two things. A person that has everything ready and set to receive someone, like it has everything on display and ready to show an idea with rather a hostile kind of approach, like look at what I have and look and be amazed by it. But also someone that's waiting on, like, doesn't want to let go of something and it's waiting for someone to, I don't know, acknowledge that. So I'm kind of confused about the meaning of that card, and also astrologically, I don't know how to, more than a water sign, it's, I don't know how to like understand that card. I would very much appreciate your insight on that one.
Yeah. So, like we just saw that it corresponds to Scorpio and the Venus ruled decan, and Venus is pretty perfect because this shows like jewels and everything. And I think with the Scorpio energy, this card is telling us about some sort of internal workings going on, because the card for Scorpio is death, and the card for Venus is the Empress, which are pretty different. So I feel like this card is showing us a lot of aspects of your mind, because everything is on a cloud, so it could all be in your head. It could be, like you said, something you're waiting for. And I think this is such an interesting card because each cup has something different. One cup has jewels, and one cup has this halo thing, which I think would symbolize peace or fertility. One has a castle, which could symbolize, all the grandeur and all the wealth, but also symbolize loneliness because that castle looks pretty isolated. Then there's this lady and there's this snake, which I feel like could relate to Medusa, because if you look at like the Greek myth of Medusa, she faced a lot of problems and the snakes were to protect her. And I feel like that relates a lot to the Empress and the Death card. Like the Empress was pushed to an extent that she had to take up this role of the villain, and she did that to protect herself. And I think this, I don't know how this relates to this card, but I feel like that myth and that story could be very important depending on the context. Then there are these dragons in one cup, which could symbolize your own mental demons, like not demons, like your own mental fears that may not be as big, but to you they seem really big. And and the most interesting cup shows some sort of divine being, and it's just so interesting. But I think the main interpretation that I want to take from this is something to do with your own mental state, and something that combines the Death and the Empress card. That is, you need to let go of something, you need to let go of your fears, and you need to let go of this defensive mentality, this mentality that thinks that you're not safe. And you need to let go of your maybe greed in order to reach a truly abundant stage in life. Like, the change needs to be and inner change. So you need to let go of those things so that you can reach that abundance that you're actually looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you're
It's more
welcome.
awesome.
Okay, Bonnie.
Yeah. What's your take on the Seven of Swords? For a while, I've only gotten that card. Luckily, not recently, but I always hate getting that card. How do you interpret that?
Okay, the Seven of Swords is the yellow one, right? With the guy in the circus.
Yeah, he's stealing swords, and this is a really sneaky card. It's really sneaky
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah, because yeah, that card does symbolize like sneaking around and like getting, but I think it also symbolizes getting away with something. So if you're getting it, it may symbolize like someone sneaking around in your life, but it could also symbolize that you are getting away with something, like in a good way. And sorry, in terms of the decans, it's lunar, the moon ruled decan of Aquarius, which is very interesting because traditionally Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and then we have the moon as well. So it's very, uh, like opposite. Hmm. But I think with the moon, it definitely shows some hidden things, and hmm, I feel like it shows some sort of lack of communication, like things are kept being kept hidden, and you're pretending like you don't care, but deep down you care, and there's this sort of disconnect, and there's a gap in the communication, and that's leading to suppressed emotions. Yeah, I think suppressed emotions is something that's definitely coming with this card. Just sneaking away with something, but not in some malicious way, just in like a human way where you're suppressing your emotions, so everything is not coming to the surface. And yeah, that's what I think about it. Okay,
Thank you.
Sameer, did you have a question?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, the session is really informative and been a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Also, for someone who's layman like me, it's very interesting to know a little bit about tarot from an informative aspect.
Thank you.
So in terms of basically, I was actually looking to move abroad next year for higher education. So I was like, if I'm looking for next year, what in terms of timing, what do you see, or like in what aspect where do you see that I could actually get a chance to move abroad next year?
Okay, okay, I'm shuffling. Okay.
Okay.
चलो
Okay, so I got the Emperor and the World in reverse. So the Emperor card is about Aries and the World is about Saturn. Now, Saturn is moving into Pisces very soon, but Saturn in Aries is going to happen in a few years. Hmm.
वाला क्या बोलते हैं अवार्ड के बारे में कुछ बोल किसकी बारे में वर्ल्ड अपने मतलब पहले तारुफ कर जवाब जवाब दीजिए
I think this is telling you something related to a Saturn transit, like when Saturn is in retrograde or when a planet is in Aries.
हेलो लेसन
Those could. Hello?
हेलो
Nivi, I think we've hit time. Is there
Yeah.
any other social media accounts that you'd like to point everybody to if you do tarot and astrology anywhere else?
Oh, okay. Yes. So Sameer, I'm gonna message you, and Abu, I know you had a question. I'm gonna message you as well.
Of course.
Um. Okay. And thank you everybody for joining. I have my Instagram that has the same name, that awkward witch, where I post more reels and everything. So that's more visual content. If you'd be interested, I'm gonna link that. And thank you so much for joining and listening. I hope you gained something from it. This was amazing for me. It was a pleasure and an honor, and thank you so much. And thank you, Kazimi Khan, for organizing this and allowing me to share. And
Drop your Instagram.
thank you so much, everybody. Can I end the space now, Kazimi Khan?
You sure can. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, and I'll be messaging you. Okay.
Okay, drop your Instagram account.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much for coming.
Okay, bye.